Thank you very much for joining me here at Big Data London. I hope you've been having a great time today. My name is Jovita Tam. I'm a business-focused data and AI advisor. I help forward-thinking companies make their AI investment work. So for the coming 25 to 30 minutes, I'd love to take you on a journey with me to explore the missing AI foundations that nobody talks about. So let's get started. So I want you to take a second with this picture and see if it might feel familiar to you. I know that over the course of the last maybe 12 and 24 months, a lot of people have been talking about AI investment, and surely that is some of the reasons why it brought us all here today, right? And it seems that we look left, we look right, and everybody's having great success with their AI. However, in reality, often it looks a lot more like this. So what I've done today is I have come up with 3 themes, studying companies that have been more successful with their AI investment to try and help you get to your reward and get over the obstacles that are in the way. Because as you know, AI investments can be very, very expensive. So here are my 3 themes for you today. The first one is synchrony. So it's about coherence and alignment. It's about synchronizing your mission and also amplifying your impact. The second one is rewiring. And I feel like this takes me back to a couple of years ago when I spoke here again at Big Data London, where I talk about, in the data theater, the data strategy theater, about venturing forward with the mindset. And again, this is a constant theme, and now this is more important than ever. So rewire your thinking and redefine your future. The last one is often what I think is the most difficult for people and for companies. And that I call duality. It's about working with parallel tracks, and it's about embracing the and instead of sitting here thinking about ors. And that will expand your possibility. And just give you a quick preview there, and for those of you who love trains, I have a lot of train analogy for you in that session. So let's move ahead. The first one is synchrony, and it's about alignment. I think it's a great thing when AI became a household term that a lot of companies went and experiment. They went and experimented because they wanted to really see for the first hand what they can do with AI and what is possible. And I think that's absolutely amazing because there are only certain things that you can learn by working on it hands-on. And so for a lot of companies now, they're now at a stage where they can say, well, we can technically do this. We have proven it. We're very, very excited. Now what, right? And this is the now what, which turns your AI investment into something that actually works instead of just a game, just an experiment, and just a concept, right? And I'm sure your executive leaders or your board is asking you, well, where are the results? Where's my ROI? And so now's the time to get aligned. And I think these are the 3 things that successful companies are doing very well. The first one is alignment and synchronization on strategic direction. It's about figuring out what is our strategic direction now and for the later. Now, a lot of times people think about strategic direction and they're like sitting here going like, is it going to be a 500-page PowerPoint deck? Yay, right? No, it's a lot simpler than that because I've come up for you 2 questions to help diagnose this. First question is, what do we want to use AI for, right? And a lot of companies will end up coming up with the answer of everything. And they believe to be AI first, they have to say, we need to use AI for everything. But that approach simply doesn't work. I think we have to be very strategic about what we want to use AI for now, and for later. We can always course correct, but going at it with purpose, with a strategy, is extremely important. The second question there is, why do we want to use AI? And I hear all sorts of wonderful and beautiful answers. Sometimes it's we want to be AI first. Sometimes it's we want to retain our strategic position. Sometimes it's we want to get ahead. All of these are wonderful. But if you peel back the onion enough layers, what I usually end up getting is FOMO. That's the reason why we want to use AI. Now, that's fine because we're all human and we all have emotions. And yes, the market out there is quite hyped right now. And it's easy for us to feel like if we're not doing this and if we've not delivered yesterday, we're missing out. But the reality is, we need a better reason for why we want to use AI other than FOMO. And companies that are not able to answer these two questions in simple terms are simply throwing their money away. The second thing about Synchrony is people. I think when it comes to making AI work, deploying AI responsibly, and in the work of AI governance, it really is about change management. And at the heart of change management, from my experience, it's all about the people. People can be your catalyst. It could make it work really quickly, or it could be your biggest obstacle. So please get your people aligned, get ourselves aligned, focus on enablement, focus on trust, and focus on adoption. You may not have all your answers today, and chances are you don't, right? Don't feel like, oh, I gotta have all the rest of the answers first before you do enablement. Start bringing people together today, because together, that's the only way we can figure out the answer. There's still companies out there today, technology companies, which claims to be AI first and is very heavily invested in their AI efforts. External marketing looks absolutely beautiful, and not to bash marketing, because it's a very, very strong message that's coming from the executive. But internally, when they release a corporate comms to say, hey, we're looking to achieve these goals using AI in the next little bit, a lot of employees are secretly coming to me and they're saying, oh my God, they want to increase our efficiency by 25%. I look left and I look right, and I think I'm going to lose my job. And this is what happens when you hold off on enablement. Humans are vital to this process. We're not just the expert in the loop when it comes to AI governance. So please start your enablement early, and please get ourselves aligned. The last one under Synchrony is execution. This one should be quite self-explanatory, because at the end of the day, it's about what we do, right? And we need to get aligned on that. Are we keeping it real? And if we want to reap the benefits of AI and we want to be successful with our efforts, we want to ask the basic questions is, how does your data look like? We're all here at Big Data London today, and I'm sure that there are countless talks today about getting your data aligned, data quality, and all these very important things. And they are important. So don't think that you can skip over it and what I call leapfrog to AI. The other thing there is keeping it real. This is change management. It's going to cost you. It's not just going to cost you in terms of investing in the technology, but there needs to be a cost and an investment in everything else that's associated with it as well. So don't think your organization is going to make an exception when it comes to how it's going to change and how decision is going to be made just because your work of AI seems important. And the last one, which clearly we're at the data and AI theater, governance theater here, is where are your guardrails? If you want to turn from playing with this as a concept, as a toy, an experiment, to being able to put it into production, being able to capture the commercial value of it, we have to have guardrails. This is sort of like the concept of freedom. We all love freedom. We all want, be able to go outside, play outside, and do all those wonderful things when we're kids. But if I say, hey, no guardrails, right? Let's run into the middle of the road when an oncoming car is coming, that's going to end up in a catastrophe. And this is what I see is stopping a lot of companies in the previous slides that you saw, that they're unable to turn it into a product. It's simply because they're missing the guardrails. So the second one, mindset, right? You're like, oh, this is another talk about mindset. How many people are going to talk to me about mindset? Get out of my mind, right? All right. Answers are important, but I think in this new context, what questions we're asking and how we're asking those questions will determine whether your answers are even going to be useful or not. So yes, I'm going to talk to you about mindset. And I'm going to talk to you about rewiring. And I'm going to first start off by sharing one of my favorite quotes with you, which says, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And this was said by Albert Einstein. So thinking is important, space is important, how we approach the problem is obviously very important. Now, the next piece of information that I want to share with you is something very close and dear to my heart. It's something that my yoga mentor taught me when I was studying yoga philosophy. He knows that I'm very intellectual. He knows that I have an engineering background. He knows I'm a lawyer. So I was able to get through the traditional scriptures quite quickly. But my yoga mentor was like, Jovita, you need to take time with it because there's a difference between knowledge and realized knowledge. And this was a number of years ago, and I was like, but I get it. This makes logical sense to me. And you can see the gears in my head are turning, right? And this is great. And an example of this would be something like when you read a list of best practices. You're like, hey, this makes sense. When you read an AI governance policy and a procedure, once they're well crafted, usually makes sense. Intellectually, this makes sense. And then you go and look at the reality of every day that we're operating. How many of us are actually embodying it? And then you look at sort of the mess, that's the reality. And you're like, well, why does change not really play out in reality? And the key there is in realized knowledge. And this is where it comes from the heart. It is when we deeply understand something and when we embody something. And so again, this goes back to the previous when we were talking about synchronicity, where I emphasized the importance of enablement and getting people aligned early, because it's going to take time for knowledge to become realized knowledge. So now the three things to focus on for rewiring. So what changed, right? And for those of us in the room who've been working on change, evolution, transformation for a while, this is unlikely the first transformation effort that you would experience, right? Sometimes it's automation, different technology comes and goes, right? And who are the successful ones and who are the ones that are less successful? The ones that are successful are the ones that re-examines based on the current context in terms of what are the new definition of the components as well as the new change meanings. And not only are you looking at components, you're also needing to look at the different relationships between them. And this is the thing about AI. It's not necessarily just identifying the different components and sitting here going like, well, I'm just going to connect the new dots or connect the dots with AI in a different way or in the same way. This is changing the entire game, and it requires you to re-examine both the components and the relationship between the components. The second one is problem definition. In this context that we're in, some of the older problems that we're going to look at is simply going to dissolve. They're not going to be relevant, and there's going to be no commercial value in solving them. And I see this a lot, where companies go in, they don't look at their existing business model, they look at their existing problem, and they're now leveraging AI to try and solve it faster, better, cheaper. It turns out that they're successful at it, But unfortunately, whenever they get to the productization stage and then they need to get to the pricing stage, needing to look at the sustainability of this, they realize, crap, this is not working. Because they were very successful at solving a problem, but the problem has changed. So please rethink, rewire, and take a look at your problem in a different way. And this doesn't mean just your technical problems, but this also means re-examine your entire business model. The last one, rewiring. And this is a funny one, right? I talk to a lot of change management professionals who are burnt out because they genuinely are working very, very hard within their organizations with tremendous pressure to deliver. And they genuinely believe that the organization has a chance and they're doing great work. And they would come to me and go, hey, I'm doing all the right things by the book. I'm connecting with people. I'm focusing on communication. I am building trust. But why is it not working? It simply isn't working, and they're pulling their hair out. And that's when I ask them a very simple question, and something that you may not expect to hear at Big Data London in the Data and AI Governance Theater is follow the money. I know. How unexciting, right? But the reality is, whenever you're sitting here asking people to change, but you don't modify the incentive and the incentive structure, people are going to follow the incentive structure because action speaks louder than words. So whenever you're rewiring and you're looking at your efforts when it comes to AI governance, when it comes to making your AI investment work, please also sit down and look at your incentive structure. What kind of behaviors are actually getting rewarded? What kind of behaviors are actually getting punished? Are we putting money where our mouth is? So on to the last session in terms of last pillar, in terms of our foundations. And this is where I promised a lot of train analogies for those of you who love it, or those of you who don't, please bear with me. So the idea of parallel tracks and embracing the idea of and. What I have up here is a picture of a monorail, because often there's a belief that, hey, if we focus on this one thing and we're hyper-focused with it, we can move fast and we can do this better than everybody else. Now, I don't doubt that logic at all, but that's like running on a monorail. You're running on one track. But what happens when this monorail needs to connect with a wider train network, which runs on two parallel tracks? Well, you have a couple of options there. But whatever happens, you have to stop dead on your tracks, and you now need to go back. And all the speed that you thought you gained, well, you're slowing down again. So is that really helpful? Again, continuing with the train analogy here, is we often hear people talk about light at the end of the tunnel. Now, what we hope for is the first scenario, right? Light at the end of the tunnel. We've gone through POC and we're now at the productization stage. We're about to push it out to market and we're gonna make money. Yay! All of our hard work, right? And we can finally have something to deliver. Light at the end of the tunnel could be really light at the end of the tunnel because we've been doing a great balancing act. Or a lot of times, if you've been running a monorail, light at the end of the tunnel could look like this. It could be headlights from an oncoming train. And I'm guessing I don't need to explain what happens if that's the case. And this is why I think it's important for companies to focus on duality. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. It's easy to sit here and say, I'm just gonna do this over another thing. But this additional piece of effort, of mental effort, of holding two seemingly conflicting ideas together, it's going to pay off. And the three things I want to cover is first, innovation and governance. Now, as I alluded to many times during this presentation, a lot of people will feel like, oh, hey, governance is holding us back. But no, it's actually innovation and governance, because governance enables us. And if we don't do innovation and governance, what we end up doing is we end up killing business value. Imagine if you're the lead engineer, the lead VP that gets brought in to do the last mile, right? We're going to take this product to the market. And what you're looking at in the product is that people from your company has been laboring on it for months on end. But there was actually no governance. You had no idea how decisions were being made. It's basically a black box to you. Are you going to sign off? Probably not. So what happens then is you need to go back and redo a lot of the work. So it kills business value. And not only in that scenario, is that companies are getting a lot smarter when they're procuring their tools. They're asking much smarter questions of what's in the tool, because ultimately they absorb the risk that's associated with it. So please work on innovation alongside with your governance. Have them grow together in a parallel tracks. Don't think that you need to have a full governance program in place before you can start innovating. Let them grow together. Let them help each other out. The second thing is core upgrades and bold innovation. And this is a real case that I was working on this project with a client, and they reached out to me because they have to redo some of the efforts. They were doing all the right things, and they've been going at it for about a year, right? So what happens there is that they're trying to figure out how to allocate their investment, decide on which use cases to adopt and which use cases, to hold on for later. What they've realized is that they were focusing on the bold innovation and were completely ignoring the core upgrades. As a result for them, they had nothing to show for from the innovation front, because that is not certain at all. But at the same time, they're losing out on operational efficiency. So again, make sure that in your use case, you have a good portfolio, a good mix of core upgrades and bold innovation. The last one, which should be really obvious because I have revisited this point a few times today, and I have my good friend Roseanne in the audience, who also advocates for the importance of enablement and importance of people. So it's about tech build and talent enablement simultaneously. Otherwise, you fail to be AI first, and you seriously lose brand trust. So here's the bonus round, right? I think at this point in time, it comes very obvious what my position is when it comes to making your AI investment work and AI governance. Is that when done right, is an enabler. It's something that you should start today, and you should start early. However, you also need to start smart. So forget about the words on this. I want you to focus on this picture, right? I can sit here and talk to you all day about the do's and the don'ts, but ultimately, the starting point is going to be based on your organization. And we can figure that out offline, and we can discuss in all those, but remember this picture. Make sure you prioritize, because it matters which can of worms you decide to open and when you decide to open them. Otherwise, it's going to look like this. Please don't go into it blind. Understand your context. Otherwise, you're going to be walking into a trap and onto oncoming trains. So this is a scenario that you don't want, remember? Light at the end of the tunnel, we don't want it to be lights from an oncoming train. We want to be able to reap the benefits of our AI investment. So thank you very much for your time today. My name is Jovita. That is my QR code to LinkedIn. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to discuss your current situations, or you just simply want to vent and go, hey, I don't think they get it, feel free to reach out. And thank you very much for your time today, and please continue to enjoy Big Data London.